Hi, I'm Torin, and welcome to Torin Loves the Simpsons. Today we're looking at Season 2, Episode 14, Principal Charming, an episode where Homer accidentally sets Principal Skinner up with Patty because he can't tell her and Selma apart, leading to an awkward relationship that Patty doesn't actually want, which inevitably results in Skinner getting hurt. Let's dive on in. We start with the humor around these parts. This is one of those episodes that's so focused on its plot that it forgets to humor except for a few particular moments. I think the gag where they show Homer's perspective as having a robot or cyborg interface is pretty great, and they do a great job of making it progressively more absurd, culminating with the excellent descriptor for Skinner that he's a possible homosexual, a visual joke they deliver with truly spot-on pacing. Similarly, the prank call for homosexual is easily one of the most memorable Moe prank calls of the entire series. I also think the Board of Education is pretty hilarious. Other than that, this episode is rather dull. Those few funny moments are enough to pull the episode's humor up to a B-, but to be honest, it's borderline C+. Well then, let's move on to the plot. First, I want to look at the one and only Seymour Skinner. No, I mean the other Seymour Skinner. Yeah, that guy, the one who's actually in more than one episode. He's portrayed as actually quite competent as an enforcer of law and order in this episode, doing things like proactively addressing a classroom disruption incident and identifying by smell not only the fact that herbicidal vandalism had been committed, but the specific herbicide used. In previous episodes, like Simpsons roasting on an open fire and Bart the Daredevil, he's portrayed as being a bit bumbling, at least when presenting to an audience. In episodes like Bart the Genius and the Crepes/Crepes of Wrath, he tries to pawn Bart off and get him away from Springfield Elementary. And in Bart the General, he demonstrates an obliviousness to his students. And of course, in this episode, he does choose to let things go to hell at the school at Bart's behest, but that's a choice. It's a bit of a twist to see him as on top of things as he is here. That's all neither here nor there as far as the quality of the episode is concerned. This is just a different characterization of him, and is an indicator that this episode is probably in a different timeline than all the other episodes I mentioned. We also see Skinner holding contempt for his students/former students when he talks trash on the busboy at the restaurant, and this is a characteristic he demonstrates kinda on and off over the years. Oh, also, Seymour? Fuck you and your standardized testing. That shit does all harm and no good, and I say that as someone who always did extremely well on those tests. We get a couple new but absolutely classic characters introduced in this episode, Hans Moleman and Groundskeeper Willie. Moleman's driver's license shows the name Ralph Mellish, a name I don't think is ever used again in the series. Willie's voice is also a bit of a work in progress, but it's pretty close. But now I gotta talk about how Patty is treated pretty much all throughout the episode. She's pressured into this relationship from pretty much all sides, even fucking Selma, and it's pretty clear Patty is not comfortable in the situation. In fact, I don't think she ever actually has any feelings for Seymour at all. Even though she seems a bit moved by the situation when she's driving away after breaking up with him, it seems to me, based on the context provided by the entire rest of the episode, that she's probably more upset that she hurt him than anything else. In the conversation in which Marge demands Homer find a partner for Selma, they hint that Patty may be asexual and/or aromantic, and in my opinion, Patty's behavior throughout the episode is pretty in line with the notion that she's ace or aro. The only thing that gives me pause there is at the end when Selma asks if Patty gave up her, quote, last chance at happiness by breaking up with Seymour, because I'd assume, considering how close the two are, that Selma would understand Patty better than anyone else. But it's still very possible that Selma doesn't understand. Perhaps because Selma is clearly not ace or aro. Perhaps because asexuality and aromanticism weren't things people really talked about or understood in 1990. Of course, in later seasons, it's hinted and eventually revealed that Patty is actually gay, which itself perfectly explains her discomfort in dating Seymour and her decision to remain celibate in a time when homosexuality was still very much not widely socially accepted. However, it's still possible that she's also ace, or gray ace, or demisexual, because those descriptors are for a completely different spectrum than the hetero to homosexuality spectrum. Human sexuality is an extremely complicated subject, after all. It's also perfectly possible that this is another example of the timeline theory, and this episode exists in a timeline where Patty is ace, and those later episodes are in one or more different timelines. I'm not totally sure how I feel about all that, though. My original point is that it's kinda uncomfortable to see Patty pressured into a relationship that she's super not into. And the breakup doesn't address that at all, so it's not like it's uncomfortable for the sake of making a point. So I find it takes away from the enjoyability of the episode with no redeeming factors. Honestly, I don't think there's anything this episode's plot does too terribly well. The only real takeaway I get out of it is that I feel bad for Patty for being forced into a situation she's clearly not comfortable with. Although, I will concede that it's a bit of a feat to get me to feel sympathy for either of Marge's sisters. This is not nearly as big of a deal as my complaints with The Way We Was a couple episodes back, but at least that episode has some heartwarming moments and contributes to the Simpson family's backstory as redeeming factors. I'm giving this plot a C-. Okay, now for the final rating. We have a B- for humor and a C- for plot. I'm going with C overall, a ranking that is no surprise to me because I've always felt this was a forgettable episode. In fact, it's so forgettable that I forgot to write an intro to this video. Thanks for watching. I always love hearing other people's thoughts on these episodes, so let me know your opinions down in the comments. And of course, please make sure to click that like button because YouTube algorithm. And if you want to see more, subscribe to the channel and set the bell to all so you hopefully actually get notifications. Up next, we have Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? So I will see you in that video.